Hey guys, Fuse back on Raid Shadow Legends. The rebalancing patch is coming this month. So what do we get? What do we get? Our heroes going to be better. Most of them are actually decent improvements. Some are just okay. Some are actually pretty good. And then there's one nerf. And they didn't just come through with their nerf gun and start spraying nerf everywhere. They actually took aim and took a shot at one of our favorite heroes. So we're going to get into Uralgrim and we're going to talk about how they're wrecking him and what he's still going to do for our team. Try to make the best of it all. Buckle up and let's get into it. We'll go through it as quickly as possible. Tila Gore main people have been wanting a buff for a while on her. She doesn't do a whole lot. So they're going to go ahead and let you steal 2 random buffs if there are 2 or more to steal. That's not too bad for an A1, right? So her throwing the HP burnout, this is going to drop to a 3-turn cooldown. That's not bad. HP burn is an effective move against most bosses. Doom Tower, it works really well. She still has that AoE leech, which is absolutely a great move to have. They're also going to give her a continuous heal without getting any crits. So there's on this move, her A2. So most of the improvements are right here. Her speed is getting buffed to 98. Let me double check that. Yeah, 98. So a reasonable speed for a legendary who's on the slower end. Not too bad. She's going to be okay, right? So here's the deal. If you're in game and got a bunch of heroes, probably not really excited about this. If you're an average player or less, and she just happens to be in your small pot of legendary heroes, these are good improvements. A 3-turn cooldown on land HP burn is going to help guarantee that you keep it up most of the time on a boss. A leech, whether it's AoE or not, is great for bosses. Really good for waves. Continuous heal without having to crit means she's going to put it up on your team, so she becomes a support champion. You're not really wanting much more out of her. She can take buffs off of enemies. She can put out the AoE leech. So not too bad overall. So I would call it just a meh improvement in the end, but at least it makes her usable. If she happens to be one of the first 3 or 4 legendaries you get, she's better than she was before. Next up is Warchief. Not that big of a buff, but we'll talk a little bit about it. So another one that's just a good small improvement. That's really all this is. He's really got a special place in Doom Tower against the lava dragon, the magma dragon. But other than that, you know, he still does what he does. His A1 has a pretty decent chance to provoke. On a 3-hitter, each swing having a chance, that's what makes him good. But what they're basically changing on him is putting this down 1 more cooldown. Is it A2? So, you know, this puts up provoke for 3 turns. Steal some random buffs from an enemy. They're just going to cool this down. So that means if you book him out, this is on a 2-turn cooldown. If you have a 3-turn provoke, that means he's moving on to the next person. In 3 turns, they're still up. He's going on to the next person. His A1's putting out provokes. That's all it really does. It helps him control with provokes. An AoE might would have been better, but in the end, it's just a small improvement. Not going to change much on Warchief. So these are 2 that are just kind of, you know, okay. They're not going to change much on how you feel about these champions, but at least they're small improvements. Now we're going to start getting into the good to possibly great, like actual improvements that matter. So Grohawk, the Bloodied, is actually not that bad of a champ. First of all, not too bad, but he is going to get his attacks all enemies, fills the turn rate by 20% based on crits, not on the speed debuff. This is really solid. This is actually really solid. He's also going to get Weaken added to his A3, where he can actually attack an enemy, steal a turn meter, put it down, Weaken. But the cooldown goes down to 3 also on this move. So if you put all this together, he's coming through, getting almost a free turn if he gets 4 or 5 crits. And when he goes again, he's already eaten up the 2nd turn on a 3-turn cooldown. That's actually pretty solid. Everything he does is basically based around decreasing speed, stealing turn meter, which is amazing, and gaining his own turn meter. So all in all, it's a pretty good improvement for Grohawk the Bloodied. I've got him on my small account and would love this improvement to take place because I don't have many orcs. It's going to be pretty solid in waves. You know, he's going to get back around to this much quicker now. So overall, pretty decent, I would say, improvement on him. So King Garg, basically they're going to up the damage on his A3, I believe. Yeah, damage up on his A3. They're going to up his multipliers. So this is one where it's going to be a good buff, possibly a great buff. We're going to have to see how the numbers play out, how it works. but at least it is a solid damage increase for him, and that's really all he's going to get. Now, Basilius Ronus is getting buffed on damage as well. This one's pretty cool because he has a really good kit. He's going to have a guaranteed stun. He's going to increase the damage on his A2, which already ignores shield and block damage, and they're going to add defensive buffs. He'll ignore that too. It ignores 50% of the target's defense, so you increase his damage, and this guy may have a serious place in the game. Definitely cool with the AoEs, and he's already having a chance of stealing a random buff, guaranteed, placing block buffs. Could be a pretty useful champ that we just need damage out of him, and that's what they're trying to give us. But is it good or great? We're going to have to do some testing. When he comes out, put some good gear on him and see what he can do. It'll be fun to do. I think this is going to be a solid improvement. We'll have to wait and see if it's actually better than just good. The last one that is good to great is going to be Big Mama herself. Basically, they're going to take away her need to get a crit to actually detonate bombs. They're going to turn her bombs into 2-turn cooldowns instead of 3. Instead of critting, she just has to have an attack buff up. Easy enough to do in arena, which is where bombs are useful. You just bring your arbiter, attack up, she can set off her bombs that way. But the bombs do have a smaller cooldown. That's good too. And because she doesn't need crit, you can do what you really want to do with bomb layers. You want to pump attack into them, and they're going to buff her stats a little bit. I think they're taking some HP away, but giving her some defense and some attack. So that's pretty cool. They're playing with their numbers to make her maybe a little bit more solid, but all in all, it's going to be a hero you can build with nothing but attack to get massive damage out of her bombs. So we'll have to also play test her. She still doesn't set them off in one turn, so if you have 2 of them, this could end up being very solid for arena. But if you only have 1, we'll have to kind of see how much of an improvement this is. But it is an improvement, so good to great. It will need some testing to decide which. Not bad overall. Now, Crypt King Grawl, this is where we're getting into the absolutely wonderful buffs. Alright, so now his decreased attack is guaranteed. It'll be 100% after they come out with this patch. But he gets better and better now. Instead of 3 random hits with HP burn, it's an AoE HP burn. 100% chance of landing AoE HP burn. So he can come in, land that down on the entire, say take him to spiders. It's good anywhere, but you take him into spiders, everybody gets an HP burn, then he goes into his next move, which is guaranteed to freeze enemies under an HP burn and extend the duration of that HP burn. He's kind of a spider's god now, or he will be as soon as we get this patch. So this is definitely solid news. It's gonna bring about, and his A1 is based on HP burn being on them to get 100% chance of decreased attack. But since he's guaranteed to land it and then can increase it, he'll be setting break attack pretty consistently. This is absolutely wonderful. He could even be used now if he's all you got on the clan boss. He can keep that attack down and an HP burn up at all times. Probably won't quite need this, but it will extend the duration if you need that of HP burns. He's solid now. You can take him against waves now, put out HP burns, freeze those enemies, extend the HP burns, and bring attack down as he picks people off with his A1. Absolutely an amazing buff to Grawl. I think they did a great job here. Now, Tomblord's getting fixed up a little bit. This is actually pretty solid. Simple, but solid. Now, they're going to change his aura to 70 accuracy in Doom Tower. That's okay. I mean, you know, if you need it in Doom Tower, that's okay. There are heroes, legendary heroes that have that in all battles. But he is good in Doom Tower. Maybe that was their idea. But what they're really changing is he still lands 4 poisons if you crit. But those poisons now are for 2 turns, not 1. This is solid. Like, absolutely a solid change. Now, on this move that does so much, all right, he decreases turn meter of allies if they have 50% HP with less than 50% HP by 100%. He just drains all of their turn meter. He has an 80% chance of guaranteed chance booked out to decrease attack on all enemies for 2 turns. A guaranteed chance to decrease defense on all enemies for 2 turns. Then he gets an extra turn if an enemy's turn meter was decreased by this skill. And they're going to take this down by another cooldown. So once you have him booked, it's on a 4-turn cooldown. Everything they did is absolutely brilliant. He's going to be great. He's already a very good hero. But this is going to make him used a lot more often, I'm quite sure. He brings all this on a 4-turn cooldown, but can get an extra turn as long as somebody has less than 50% HP. So Tomblord, A+. They definitely buffed him, and it's going to be useful for sure. All right, Robar is actually already a really solid champion. Extra turns, big hits, he does a lot. The first thing you see when you look at him, though, is 87 speed. They're fixing that, and they're jumping him up to 97. That's a good improvement without a question right there alone. But he's also going to get his A3 increased damage against extra buffs. So now it's going to include things like provoke and fear and the things that you're going to be using in arena. It's going to make him, he hits hard. This helps him hit harder, so the people you're taking into the arena could actually get some improvement out of him, as well as just wave clear and killing trash. He's going to be pretty solid after this. I think there was one more improvement. Speed up, no more debuffs, increased damage though. Everything about him is now going to be solid. The biggest improvement is just giving him some speed. That 10 speed makes such a difference when you have a speed aura or you're trying to increase the speed buff of 30% on heroes. It makes a huge difference having that 97 compared to 87. So he was already good. This buff makes sense. They didn't overtune him, but he's going to be absolutely solid. I think he's going to get a lot more play. Now, Pixnil, probably going to be at odds with some people. I think this is an absolutely amazing buff. I think this is one of the best buffs they're giving somebody. So basically what they're going to change is what they needed to. All these passives have really low chances, odds of actually proccing. So instead of 20%, this starts at 50%. Her chance of anybody taking a freeze, it gives her a chance of stealing it and placing it on herself. At 50%, that means we're going to get to 65 with books. And everybody's scared to book her because she's not that good. This is going to make her that good. So a 65% chance to steal a freeze, put it on themselves. Now they're going to change this to a 50% chance with books of actually filling her turn meter by 25% when she receives that freeze. And it doesn't have to be the one she steals. If it's placed on her, it works the same. So that's a much higher chance of gaining a quarter of your turn meter. And then this is just guaranteed 100%. She's going to remove freeze buffs, debuffs at the start of every turn. So she cannot be frozen. Hands down, that's it. She can't be frozen. And she likes to steal freezes off of other people. Once you book her out, this is going to be sick. You could pair her up with Dark Elhain, get a free nuke every time she steals the frost off of somebody else, and then just brushes it off and goes on about her business. And don't forget, she has a decent kit. She brings increased defense and a continuous heal for the entire team for 2 turns. Solid. She attacks all enemies that are under a freeze debuff. Great to pair with another freezer. And then she places weaken for 2 turns on all enemies that are under a freeze debuff. She can pretty much weaken the entire team, gets a free hit while she's bringing your defense up and putting a continuous heal. This is a support move that's hard to ignore if you actually read it all the way through. An attack that increases your defense and puts a continuous heal and drops a debuff. And I'm going to tell you right now, Ice Barrage, as far as damage, is actually pretty solid if you account for all 5 hits. If they were to hit a single target, it's actually some serious damage if you build her out that way, which is not what she's made to do. But a decent chance to freeze enemies, and anybody that gets hit twice will be frozen. So she can help support keeping some CC on waves. And then her A1 can just throw a Veil out at random. So she's actually going to be, I think, really solid against Torben in the arena, but probably more importantly in those crazy Doom Tower waves when you get up, 80, 90 on hard level and those Torments are killing you. She's going to be really great at just pulling out freezes off of some of your main heroes. And she'll shrug it off and come around, bringing your defense up, putting weaken down, doing whatever it is you ever set up to do. So I think this is actually we've been waiting to hear what they're going to do. This is what they needed to do. It sounds pretty solid to me. So now we got to get to it. I almost exited the game because this is so hard to talk about. So they did it. They nerfed him. Let me pull him up. All right, man. Uragram, he's getting nerfed, and he's getting nerfed pretty hard. Now, there's no way to pretend it's not a hard nerf. So we're going to have to play both sides of the fence here. This stings. It hurts. A lot of people are just now getting him. We just had a 2x for Void Shards. He's still fresh. He's a new hero. He does amazing things, but he doesn't break the game. He's super effective on the Dragon and really, really good on Ice Golem. And everywhere else, he's an excellent support that brings a lot of damage. I've been dragging him through hard mode Doom Tower, but he's not carrying me. He's just helping get the job done. So here's the thing. Poor Uragrim. Here's what they're going to do. His A1 is this I could handle. I get that he is a little overpowered for an epic. I get that. But they couldn't just let us have our fun, right? They had to break my new toy. We just put so much work into him. Anybody that got him rushed straight into him just to make dragons faster and easier in most runs. He makes most runs faster and easier. But A1, instead of a 3-hitter, it's a 2-hitter. So you lose Giant Slayer. We could live with that. Now you have to use War Master. You only can land 2 poisons, and it's still the same chance that you always had. So, I could live with that. He's definitely a little overpowered. I could live with taking this down to 2 hits and kind of nerfing him a little there. He still has his cleanse and his single target heal, which is a good heal and a good cleanse. But they went and hit this one just too hard, in my opinion. He can only place 2 poisons on everybody now. So now he's not that super poisoner, but that's a good poison. I could live with that, but then they dropped him down to 1 continuous heal. They couldn't leave 3 poisons up and give us 1 continuous heal, or leave 2 continuous heals up and just give us 2 poisons. They already nerfed his A1 a little bit. It seems like that would have been fair, but they went and gave it to him. They hit him pretty hard. He's a void. They probably made a lot of money by putting him into the pot. I just don't think that he should have been nerfed so hard. I could see nerfing him. I know he was really, really strong, but let's talk for real shop here, okay? He's not going to be like horrible now. If you got him, you're not losing. He's just not going to be running solo crazy through the dragon and thumping the ice golem in the head. Now he's going to need a team around him, which is what the game is all about, right? You don't need one hero to do these things. You need a team. You need good gear on that team. But what this does mean is, instead of focusing on, he still does everything he does, just not as fast and not as well. I hate that they hit both the poisons and the continuous heal. That's a little rough, but he's still a great support champion that throws out a decent amount of poisons. He's going to make an excellent part of any dragon team, any ice golem team. But now maybe you don't have to pump him full of regeneration gear. Maybe you can take that immortal gear off of him and put him in a reflex set to get back to those poisons. Maybe, whatever it is, you could try relentless just for extra procs and get back to those poisons. You could do the frenzy set to get back to those poisons. There's a lot of new ways you might want to play him, because now he's not the center of your team. He's a big part of your team. That's the reality of it. That doesn't change the fact that it's leaving a really bad taste in my mouth. It's like pretty rough. I personally wish, I've heard a couple of people saying, I wish we could get our resources back on him. Well, he's not that bad. He's not that bad. But speaking of getting resources back, at least in the department, when you build a hero, you build a hero. I kind of get that you might would have built somebody else, but he's still going to be solid. He's just not going to be that guy you thought he was. He's a really good champ and maybe still a contender for the top. We're going to have to play him through when they nerf him down. See how that goes. But I do wish you get your books back on these heroes. So let's get out of this index for a second. I do wish, how many new players, they get one legendary hero and they put books into him because that's all they have for a long time. I don't blame them. But then they get, Seal the Drakes, and they're like, I wish I had my books back. We can reset masteries for gems. I wish we could reset our books. Get the books off of a hero, because you maybe for so many gems, that's just a chance to try to re-roll and get just the books you want on a hero who doesn't need all the books to be effective, because sometimes it is more about book placement. You can get their cooldowns and then move on to the next hero. But anyways, I'd like to hear all of your thoughts. Was there somebody that you were really hoping would get buffed, but they weren't on the list? How often do you think they should do this? I think they should do this more often, or do sweeping changes like all the old heroes who have really low base speed. They could just fix that in one quick patch. It'd take a week to look at anybody that's under 95 and say, okay, in the new meta, they need to have a good 96, 98, 100 speed. I'm sure they know who the heroes that aren't played much are. They can look at them and say, what's their kit lacking? Like if you think about it, Ethos still has the weak version of Weaken. It's just odd to see that on a legendary. He's still amazing. Thank goodness he's such a hard hitter, but sometimes it just doesn't make sense that they don't go back and just tweak some of those things. But they do it. It just takes forever, right? We wait a long time. So what are your thoughts? Should they do this once a month? Pick 5 to 10 heroes and rebalance them to keep them in the meta, or at least usable. If that's all the heroes that an average player has, they really can't. You can't expect them to get all the new heroes and keep up with everything. They're going to have to make the old heroes relevant. And they are working on it. Even the worst of the worst was probably Warchief and Tila. Not a big change on them, but maybe just enough to make them where if that's all you got, they're usable. You know, at least it is a buff. Some of them we'll have to play test to see if they're great. Some of them, in my opinion, are definitely great. And then the nerf, man, it's a tough nerf. Why did they wait this long? Why did they wait this long? If he was broken, if they thought he was busted good, they could have fixed it. It takes some pretty intense gear to run 25 as a solo. I don't think he was that busted. But anyways, that's my 2 cents. I'm still glad I have him. Hopefully you're not too disappointed. I know it hurts. Believe me, I know it hurts. But hopefully you still know you got a good champ. And you just got to put a team around him. You're not going to be running as much food. I'm sure you can pick one good hero with him, pair them up, and still run some food through Dragon's Lair. Anyways, guys, I appreciate you sitting through it. And until next time, enjoy the grind.